dog in your life is thinking? Well, join me, Liz Murdoch, animal communicator, talking with the dogs and finding out what dogs want people in their lives to know and understand. I've spent my life talking and listening to animals. So if you consider yourself a dog person or just happen to have a dog, I'm here to help you learn how to talk or listen to the dogs in your life. I chat with people too, sharing stories and tips on exactly how animal communication or being a dog whisperer makes an impact at home or when working with the dogs. So welcome to Talking with the Dogs podcast, a place where we uncover exactly what dogs want us to know and celebrate that every dog has a story. This episode is brought to you by Nobl Pet Foods. No nonsense, no bull. Go to noblefoods.com, use promo code DOGTALK15, and they'll deliver dog food to your house with Nobl. We're going to welcome you officially to the show, Jim. So let's talk about you first, so people know who's on today. So we have Jim from Nobl Foods, and you also, how do you like to introduce Guardian Pet Foods also?
So Guardian Pet Food is the kind of the parent company.
Yes.
That's the corporation. And then Nobl Foods is the brand line for the food bars and the treats. And then we have a supplement line that is under the Almighty Elixirs. And the Dog Almighty is coming out next week in both mobility and calm.
Wow. And does the calm have CBD in it?
No, it's funny. CBD is actually not allowed. It's illegal in pet food, but you couldn't tell because everybody has it in pet food.
Oh, wow. Okay. We're going to come back to that because that comes up.
So ours is, they're things like on the mobility, there's L-carnitine, there's collagen peptides, things like that. It's all under the NASC, which is the National Animal Supplement Council, as opposed to feeding guidelines. So it's not a topper, it's not a broth, it's a broth-based supplement for those two conditions. The Calm has tryptophan and chamomile oil and things like that.
You started this dog company how long ago?
Had the idea back in April of 2017. I'd been in the industry for 25 years. Had the idea in April of 2017. Gave my co-founder a call and I said, hey, I got an idea. And he said, is it anything related to pet food? And I said, yes. He says, well, I've got a non-compete until July 1st. So I was like, all right. He goes, call me after that. So on July 3rd, I called him up. I said, this is what I got. What do you think?
And July 3rd of which year?
2017.
Okay.
So a couple months later, showed him some of the prototypes and formulations and stuff like that. His background is in animal nutrition and research and development and formulation. So he was impressed with the original formula, but he made it so much better. Then so much so that after we did our first production runs or sample runs, we got him tested, all the analytics, amino acids, digestibility, all that. We actually founded the company and incorporated, it was 3 years ago yesterday. So October 29th, 2017, we founded the company. And then took us about a year and a half to find the right manufacturer to be able to do what we wanted and meet the specs and quality. So then we started selling in 2019. And then we relaunched, the original product was called More, which stood for Meals Ready to Eat. And then we had the treats were whole prey because all they have is heart, liver, and meat. And then in February of 2020, we rebranded to Nobl because it captured more of kind of who we were and what we believed. So.
Well, I love it. For those of you who have been focused on the dogs, Nobl, get it? There's no bull in the food. And Nobl is also a very classy name. So.
And you don't need a bowl to feed it.
No. So yeah, it comes in packets like a stick. And when I first tried it with my dogs, I cut the top of, it's like
it's like a bar, and I held it and I let my dog bite it off. And so he bit off half, and then I turned and gave the other lab, and then my little dog got a little morsel. And you do want to have water available, right? And that's on some of the packaging. Make sure your dogs get enough water.
Yeah, just like any food that you would give, dogs should have water ad libitum, so whatever they want, as much as they want. The difference on ours is it doesn't require rehydration. Right. So there are a bunch of freeze-dried foods out there that they tell you for every 2 or 3 medallions, you should put a quarter cup of warm water for 5 minutes before feeding it. Ours doesn't need that.
The reason I really want to talk to you about this is because it comes up so frequently, digestive issues, when I'm doing a scan and dogs are missing something and people are trying to figure out which dog food. They go to the vet who prescribes a certain dog food and they're concerned about the price point, or they want to cook. And yours is very easy. And well, we're going to filter that through, but dogs, I'm trying to help people find the best foods for their dogs. And CBD is the second tenet of this, is that CBD can be great for many dogs in many situations. The challenge that comes up that I don't think is out there enough, because so many people are trying to sell it, is finding the right dose for your dog and all of that. And people often don't realize that you can't just buy CBD and give it to your dog. And so I like that when yours is called calming and you talk about it being illegal. Can you share from you've got way more experience about this CBD in dog food and dosage?
So the issue is there's no data. There was a congressional hearing last summer, fall, in that time frame, that said, they brought in 100 some odd people as experts and witnesses and things like that to talk about CBD. Mm-hmm. And none of them provided or would bring data, because all the FDA was looking for was saying, we need to know is it 5 milligrams per 10 pounds? Is it, is there a point where if you gave 20 milligrams to a larger dog, is that a problem? What if you're giving CBD in an oil, a tincture, a treat, and a food? Like, how does that happen? Like, what's the absorption rates? What effect does it have on the dog? So there was all these questions, and none of them, these were manufacturers. These weren't just people out on the street. None of the manufacturers provided the data. One manufacturer said, well, my CBD, we have tons and tons of data. Mm-hmm. And the senator said to him, well, I would expect that on my desk at 5 o'clock this evening. And then the manufacturer backpedaled and was like, no, because he suddenly realized he's in a congressional hearing and what he's saying is law. I mean, he could get in trouble. So they've put it out there. There's tons of people that sell it, use it. There's no doubt there's a benefit to it, and dogs and people get benefits. I mean, I use a CBD cream because I have kind of like the beginning of arthritis. And if it gets really bad, I put it on. It's helpful. But the issue and the bigger problem is there's no standards, no quality measures. There's no unified force to it. Right. And there's not enough people or agents or officials in the regulatory body to crack down on it. Right. So what they've done is they occasionally go out, grab some product, and the only thing they're cracking down on now, there's two parts to it. One, if the company says a medical claim, like this fights cancer or this stops arthritis, so if they make a medical claim, the FDA, FTC stop them and put a stop sale and do all that stuff. The other one is if they take the product and they test it and it says that it has so much CBD in it and it doesn't meet those levels, too high or too low within a certain percentage range, then they'll actually shut them down as well. But overall, there's not enough enforcement to go after everybody. And it's, a couple $100 million, if not nearing $1 billion in sales in the pet industry.
It's huge.
And to make it even worse, but the pet industry, CBD is much less expensive for whatever reason than it is on the human side. So you actually have a lot of humans buying CBD ointments and tinctures for dogs and taking it themselves.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Because
wow.
it's like $25 cheaper.
Yeah. Well, I think certain medicines are that way too. Yeah. Arthritis meds for dogs is different. Okay. So the CBD, and the reason I don't want to just skip over this is because it comes up in my animal communication chat sessions. And I also have to be very clear. I do not diagnose issues. I'm not a vet. I'm not medically trained. What I do is I can tune in with a dog and say, I see that your dog is having digestive issues to a client. I just think it's really important because people do get frustrated about their vet bills, or they don't go to the vet soon enough. Or I've had people say, I wish they called me soon enough, but they're trying to figure it out. And I really want to advocate for the dogs. If you're going to give your dog CBD oil, make sure you're monitoring it and giving them a dose that somebody is advising you is the right dose for what your dog is eating and other meds that it's on. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I would also throw in to do a little research on the brands that you're considering. I think 2 months ago, there was 25 CBD companies that got hit by the FDA for not having the right amounts according to their packaging, for purity issues, things like that. It's unfortunately, when you have something that has such a groundswell and explosion of sales like this, you get a lot of folks that are in it for the gold rush, not for the long-term health and benefit of the industry or the people or pets that they serve.
Right.
So I again, personally, like we have in our innovation file, we have a bar that is completely, codenamed Maui Wowie for a CBD bar, but we won't even produce it to test it because it's not legal.
Yeah. So,
I mean, there's lots of things. So there's other alternatives to CBD. There's the other natural botanicals and endocannabinoids. So you got a lot of that stuff. You just got to spend the time and do the right thing, because there isn't an easy solution to some of the problems.
Yeah.
I mean, it's usually a longer term situation, like an arthritis in a dog. While it could be in the healthiest of dog otherwise, a lot of times there's other health issues with that dog that exacerbates the problem of the arthritis. It's, the sad thing is about 60% of dogs, I think the last number was 58% of dogs in the US are obese.
Mm-hmm.
So obesity leads to potential diabetes, heart conditions, joint health. I mean, there's, all sorts of respiratory issues. There's so many things that go on that. And it's, part of the problem is we tend to feed out of love. Like, oh, if I give more food, the dog's paying more attention to me. I'm paying more attention. They know I love them, and it's good.
People don't intend to have an obese dog. They're, as you said, here's another treat. Oh, we have visitors here. Go have a bone and be quiet in your crate, or here's some more treats. How can, so they're coming from a place of caring for their dog for the most part. So then they're trying to figure out what to feed. And that's an anxiety that comes up in my conversations as well. Yeah. Well, I was trying to figure out, it's so expensive. I'm going to make my own. I'm going to try another product. How can they, why should they switch to your dog food? There's so many people starting dog food businesses. What makes yours special?
Yeah. And so this might be shocking. I'm not saying that my food is the best food for all dogs.
Right. It's good.
Because there's so many things, like, there's kibble, there's fresh, frozen, freeze-dried, raw, all those things. And, everything for every person or every dog. So even within kibble, I worked at Purina, Blue Buffalo, Royal Canin. So I've worked at the biggest pet food companies. And, the kibble that they make goes anywhere from 85 cents a day feeding cost for a 25-pound dog up to $2.50. And it's a broad spectrum. It serves a purpose. It's shelf stable. It's less expensive. It's, complete and balanced in a sense, not always proven that way, but it has those things. So, you never we always joke, like people always talk about, oh, don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics. My co-founder and I always throw in, and don't talk about their food choice.
Exactly.
Because it's food for a person and for their dog is a very personal decision. And, you're not going to sit there and go, I'm going to take this because it's the worst thing possible for my dog, but I can afford it.
Right.
You can't. You put your love and your thought and your intentions into that food. So if someone comes around and says, that's awful, you're killing your dog with that food,
right?
Immediately the shoulders go up, and if you're the dog, the haunches go up, the tails, and there's no reason to do that. I mean, our entire approach is trying to just educate people on what's important to the dog. And if those things that we tell you, if you look at it and you say, all right, well, that matches up with your diet and my needs, then take the food, take the diet. If it doesn't, if it goes to something else, we're not going to shame anybody and say, oh, you should really feed ours, otherwise it's awful for your dog. That's not the point. Everyone, to their own abilities, has to do what they can for the animal that they took in.
That is so great. No dog shaming, dog food shaming. You're right. Because I think, that's part of my mission is building community regardless of where your dog came from, what you named it, what kind of breed you have, that we need community because we're also attached to our dogs for the most part. Nobody intends to take it to an animal shelter. But if we can learn how to feed them better and support each other, then we're going to have healthier dogs, happier homes, and I do believe fewer dogs that we can't take care of that end up in shelters.
Yeah,
someone's overloaded.
The only time I shame a pet food company is when they just outright lie or have too much marketing puffery.
Yes.
I literally just wrote an article on LinkedIn about a company that actually made claims that are not allowed by law, and they have no data to support it. So I'll call them out.
Yeah.
But I won't call someone out for that choice, because I think the form that they use and what they're trying to do is right and good. But you can't just throw out marketing words and puffery and claims. Like, you got to have actual data. It's kind of a microcosm of the bigger world that we're in now, as people don't want to listen to science.
Yes. And with our dogs is that there's a lot going on, and dogs especially if they're eating the wrong foods or they're eating too much of even the right food, there's going to be medical issues and costs that some families get overloaded with, and they can't afford a $3,000 whatever. And yet the dog might really need it. So it's like, let's try and keep our dogs as healthy as possible.
Just something crazy as an FYI, a lot of people with their dogs that have an allergy or a sensitivity, manufacturers do not have to report what they would call a manufacturing aid.
Right.
So if they put a particular oil in or a different chemical to help in the processing of moving it through the extruders and stuff, they don't have to list it. And oftentimes it can cause some sensitivities or allergies, not allergies, insensitivities. Allergies are pretty rare in total, but so it causes a sensitivity, and the person often will look back and go, oh, well, it might be it must be the chicken, or it might be this. And then the other problem is, because there's no consistency of ingredient requirements, raw material ingredients, corn is not corn, and sweet potato is not sweet potato.
Yes. And I've talked to people about how it changes. They'll say, oh, it suddenly developed an allergy. And I'll say, well, if it got sold to another company or something, they're not saying
doesn't even have to. Just you found it for 3 cents cheaper, and it's a different site. It comes from a different part of the country. It's a different farmer. It's a different whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. It really is. But part of that, like I said, we don't have to put all those things in the diet. So there's far less likelihood of there being any problems. And a lot of the carbohydrate and stuff that goes into it, it's not the primary thing that causes the GI distress. But we've, of all the product we've ever sold, we've only had 2 dogs that had a GI issue. Mm-hmm. And turns out one of them was a 12-pound dog. So they should have only had half a bar a day. Right. The owner thought it was more like a treat and gave him 3 bars. So they had 6 days of food. It was like, well, of course your dog had GI distress. Like you just jammed 7 steaks in their mouth.
Well, I've got 3 dogs. I've got like 2 labs and then the Chihuahua who's got like no teeth. So I'm mashing her stuff up. But the thing that's good about yours too, for a senior dog, is that it like dissolves in her mouth. I mean, I give her a small part, she can chew in the back, but it crumbles so well because it's so pure that I was like, this is good.
My golden before this one died of cancer and lymphoma and had megaesophagus. And when he was struggling with the megaesophagus and the treatments and things like that, the food was great because for only him is I would soak it in water just because it was difficult. Like otherwise he would regurgitate and have problems swallowing.
My last podcast guest had that. I'd never heard of it.
Yeah, it's awful. So, I mean, like there are actually some dogs that are younger that don't have it with other disease that actually there's like little seats that you have to sit them up like this so that they could get it down. But for my dog, I put the bar, I crumbled it up and then I put water in it. And it was, basically the consistency of a milkshake for him. And, it was phenomenal because he kept going and was able to eat that. And when he got to the point where he no longer was interested in the food, we knew he was, he was done.
Wow.
And it's crazy. We actually are working with a university trying to get a longer term feeding study for cancer. The prevailing thought is that cancer cells easily convert carbohydrate to feed the cancer cells. And the cancer cells cannot easily convert, and actually the good cells thrive on the fat and the protein. So the current belief is that a diet that is very low in carbohydrate and high in fat, because that's the primary energy source, and protein, can actually help a dog fight. Doesn't cure, but helps a dog much better in fighting cancer. So we're providing them with pallets and pallets of product to try it and to test it and to see. Like, we won't be able to make any claims or anything for years on years, if ever. But we've had lots of anecdotal information of people that are just like, my dog lost all interest in fresh food or in kibble. I heard about your product. I tried it. They loved it. And we've had about a half a dozen people, again, anecdotally just say, like, when my dog stopped eating your food, we knew it was time to put them down because they were in too much pain. And I was like, so that's one of those things that whatever we can do to help out a dog to make that stuff go. And
well, it sounds like you're on the perfect track to do this. And it's, it's not like, okay, well, this is a good niche, I'm going to try and fill it too and play the game. It's clear that your dogs are advocating for you.
Yeah, we've been accused. We have a vegetarian bar that's coming out. And it was one of those things that people are like, oh, you're just trying to capitalize on the vegan movement and all that stuff. And it's not. We're advisors for a company called Bond that works on cellular proteins. So they basically they drew out DNA from a chicken. The chicken stays alive and runs around and everything's fine. They take that, they put it into a vat, they feed it essential like amino acids and different things, and they actually grow meat. So it's lab.
No GMO. I mean,
yeah.
It's there's meat, but it's considered vegetarian.
Well, those are some of the debates because you're taking a cell. You're not most people are the vegan or vegetarian because of the injury and damage and death to an animal. Right. Well, this doesn't. So this chicken, we've been doing the work for 2 years. This chicken's still around, running around, doing all that stuff, having fun. And it's made several hundred pounds of chicken meat off of that one draw.
Oh, wow.
And so it's cleaner. There's no salmonella, no E. coli, none of that stuff. And it just grows in the vat and then, is ground up, made into slurry and put into treats and eventually food.
Is there I guess, are there differences to this laboratory created chicken in terms of the benefits? Are there any side effects?
No. So right now, it's truly, so there's no in vitro part. It's pulled out, it's put into a vat. And it grows inside there. But like you can grow white breast chicken meat, you can grow thigh, any of that stuff, because, you know, and you can feed it the nutrients to have those cells grow. So even feed makes it sound like Frankensteinish, but you're just providing it with the nutrients that the cells need to multiply and grow. Okay. So it's, my wife calls it Frankenscience, but you actually can make a better meat. Again, no E. coli, no salmonella, none of that stuff.
Not in the environment that's
no slaughter, none of that stuff. Depending on what nutrients you provide the cells, you can customize what that meat will be and like what it will deliver. So guaranteed protein levels, you can add in different things to it, like, you know, supplements or stuff like that to fortify.
Are they selling this to people yet? Like, can we buy chicken breast? Are we going to be able to?
So the challenge is Bond Pet Food is the company that we're working with on it. They just BOND. They're up in Boulder, Colorado. Rich Kellerman is the founder. They're working on it. We've got treats out there. We've got a bar treat that's driven by yeast, but it was just kind of building on the idea because the way the yeast is grown is the way the chicken's grown. 3 years ago, the cost of 1 pound of chicken meat from the cell lab was about $10,000 a pound equivalent. And now it's down to under 1,000. The idea is to get to market next year. By that time, it will be less expensive than regular chicken meat.
Wow. And the broth, I mean, you can still make the broth.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, you don't need it. So like on the human side, because that's where the big, like, Impossible Burger, Beyond Meat, all those guys, there's companies that are making vegetarian shrimp kebabs and, you know, all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah, I've had those.
And the idea behind this is, you know, for them, it has to look a certain way. So like when you make a vegetarian burger, there's a lot of beet juice in it because they want it to squeeze and look like it's bloody, and they want to make fake meat, basically. On this for the pet, you don't need it. Like you don't need the marbling of a steak. You don't need the texture on that because you're just taking it and you're grinding it, mixing it, blending it, and then producing it. So it doesn't need all those same things. So he'll have a finished good product well before some of these other guys, and they're spending a lot more money because it has to have that visual representation where he doesn't have to. It just has to have the flavor, the aroma.
And that's how they're getting is fake shrimp. We just had fake shrimp the other night. Does that have any of the real shrimp essence in it, or is it just?
I don't know. I haven't done anything on the human side. Like we started this one with Rich on the chicken. And then obviously the next one would be beef, but there's like some ridiculous number of 70 billion chickens a year are killed for pet food.
Yeah.
So that was the idea of like, okay, well, when you look at what, like the size of a vat, what goes into it and what natural resources it takes to develop it versus having a billion chickens running around and feed and environmental and all that other stuff. Same thing with cattle. If it works here and you do it with cattle, you'll be able to take like the prize Angus steer, draw the DNA out, and then that cow, that steer can live in like the high life for 20 years, just getting occasional blood draws. And it would replace like years and years of cattle herds.
Interesting. Okay. Well, this is definitely something to think about for sure.
It's kind of trippy, but
it is. I'm sure people will have a field day debating all sorts of variations on that, but that's okay.
Which is where I was going with the vegetarian one. So we looked at the vegetarian diets that were out there and we're like, these are awful. I mean, we actually took them and tested them and they weren't delivering what they said they were. They were short on amino acids. There was all sorts of stuff. And we were like, like if our mantra is pets before profits, then we should be able to do this.
Yeah.
So we set out and we developed the vegan one, and we actually went head to head with the two biggest vegetarian ones, VDog and Wild Earth, and we crushed them on analytics and palatability.
Mm-hmm.
Then we said, that's only going to work if we show that it's really different. So we compared it against 12 meat-based kibbles, and we destroyed them on all of it as well.
Wow.
So, I mean, where we are all natural in the meat bars, because of the vegan, we had to add certain things, calcium, phosphorus, L-carnitine, taurine, things like that, that usually come from animal sources.
Mm-hmm.
So we added synthetic versions of that. But those 12 meat-based ones that we compared ourselves against, they use the exact same ingredients. And our point was, if their meat is that good, why do they have to supplement it with
the supplements?
The meat supplement, the essential amino acid supplement, like we do. There's 1,800 companies that use L-carnitine in their diet, but they're all meat-based. It's like, why do you need to do that?
They shouldn't need to do it.
Yeah. It means that you're using a poor quality ingredient.
Well, so I'm in LA, and people, maybe they do this elsewhere, but they get very graphic on what people are using, and they're saying, well, they're using, euthanized dogs. That's the meat that they're using. Is that true?
It's like one of the things that Just Food for Dogs is coming out. The owners, Chavez and those guys, are coming out with a book, and they're like, pet food allows for poultry feces and, dead, diseased, and dying. And it's like, yeah, but so does a hot dog.
Yeah.
When you look at pathogens, all human food needs is what's called a log 3 kill step, a log 3 reduction. So you go from 1 million to 100,000 pathogens, CFUs. It's like, yeah, but if you break it out that way, it sounds disgusting, and you'd be like, oh my God, I'm not going to eat any of that stuff. But most companies are beyond that. That's just saying, like, if you have 101,000, you should be shut down. But most companies are further log 4, log 5. But they try to take the one grand statement that's going to make everyone shudder. And it's like, no one goes to the pound and says, I'll take the last 50 dogs you euthanized and grind it up and do that. Has there been unscrupulous rendering plants that have taken all sorts of animals? Yeah. But like, those are bad people.
Yeah.
That's not the norm. That's not how it's done. That's, but somewhere along the line, someone did that. So then it became, here
that's
you go.
What everyone's doing.
And then the other favorite comment that people make is like, well, are they raised? Like, is it GAP certified? Are they humanely raised? It's like, yes, they're all humanely raised right up until the point they lift them up by the hooves and slice their throat. Like, it's,
yeah.
So it's just one of those things, like where you want to focus. And that's why we're involved with Bond and looking at alternative things for us. Like we're also working on a black soldier fly larva and a cricket.
Yeah. Wow.
Because if you can do that, mealworms, if you can and get the same sort of level of efficacy for a dog, and the dog thrives on it, then why ruin this ecosystem for this one if you can come up with alternatives?
Yeah, it's hard. Well, I think it's great that you're continuing to work in this industry and try and find ways to make a really positive contribution, for sure.
Been in it for 25 years. It's like you kind of gets under your skin and into your system.
Well, I think it's like what Cappy said is, though, that you could do other things. Once you've learned how to work within a large corporation, you can transfer a lot of those skills to, manufacturing, pens or whatever. But, I think that there's a need for this for sure. And people are searching and they get confused. And should I go to the vet and buy the dog food the vet's saying, or what should I do? So I think it's good that you want to make a contribution.
Yeah. My co-founder, Ryan Yanka, he writes blogs for pet food industry. It's like debunking pet food myths and misconceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So he takes it from a science perspective. For me, I write similar things, but mine's just a much more layman terms and commentary. Mm-hmm. It was just like, again, when people say, "Oh, so you're saying yours is the best pet food out there?" I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm saying for certain dogs, it's the best.
That's good.
You have to find a dog that won't like it, but it's so you have these different things on there, and we tell people, here's what you should look for. Like, here's the first set of questions. And I put I think it's on our website too, but we had the part of like, here's 5 questions to ask when choosing a pet food. Does your dog have a specific need? Like, that's the first and foremost. Like, if your dog's fat, then don't give them a food that's going to make them fat, or don't give them a quantity of food that's going to make them fat. And there's the other questions are less about the dog, but just as important. I mean, it's like, does the dog like the flavor, the palatability? Do they have all that stuff? Can you afford it? Where do you like to shop? Yeah. I mean, all sorts of things like that are important. So it's whatever your answers are, there's a path to the right food for you and the right food for your dog. It's not always, here, spend $500 a meal and that's guaranteed to be the best for your dog. It doesn't work that way.
Right. And as your dog, Louie, said, sometimes what's the right food now you need something different 4 years from now or whenever, because they have different needs.
It always changes. I mean, the dog's activity level, their environment, their stress level, whatever they're doing, is going to impact their nutritional requirements. And the 2 greatest disservices that the pet food industry has ever done is small, large, and small, medium, and large dogs. Like, they're all the same. They're not. They're just, so Cappy weighs 42 pounds.
Oh, wow.
He should only eat a bar and a half or a bar and 3/5 to get the nutrient that he needs. He actually eats 4 a day, which is the equivalent for a 100-pound dog. Mm-hmm. Because his metabolism is different. His anxiety, his stress, his requirements are greater. Louie is 70 plus pounds and he eats 4 bars because he's growing still. So otherwise he'd be on 3. My dog that passed away was only eating 3 bars a day and he was 85 pounds.
Yeah,
90.
Interesting.
So it's like, it changes for each dog. And the other problem is like the idea of, one year is 7 years for a dog. And it's like, it's easy, which is why people said it. But depending on the breed, the size, and all those other things, it changes. Like 1 year for a small breed dog, like a, Chihuahua, is about 14 years.
Yeah.
Great Danes only live to 6-7 years old, 8 years old on average. Well, there's different things that happen. If you only take your dog to the vet once a year, and it's a smaller dog or something like that, it's like you only going to the dog once a decade. Or the doctor once a decade.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
I mean, it's so literally, if for simple math, you say 7 years is a whatever. That's what they've always said. The average dog goes to the veterinarian 2.5 times a year.
Oh, wow.
That's the equivalent of 2.6 years. Every 2.6 years, you're going to a doctor. I mean, how much do you think could change for you in 2 years?
Yeah. A lot.
Yeah.
So schedule those visits, and visits can be preventative too when you find things.
That would be the ideal, to make it be preventative instead of treating the disease. Help them. So. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's been fun chatting with you.
Thank you very much for having me on.
And keep me posted on the changes you notice.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I guarantee you, I think they're kind of eyeballing me.
Okay, bye.
We'll see you. Thank you.
Bye. Ready to find out what your dog wants you to know? Visit talkingwiththedogs.com, book an appointment with me, and we'll find out.
Thanks for tuning in to Talking with the Dogs. Hope today's episode made you want to understand your own dog better and appreciate that every dog has a story and something to say. Subscribe now for more dog stories and insights into animal communication and what it's like to be a dog whisperer. Review this episode on Apple Podcasts or follow Talking with the Dogs on Instagram or Facebook. and sign up for a chance for you and your dog to be a guest on the show. Whatever you do, I hope you'll spend time talking with the dogs.